Hey everybody, another episode of Howling with the Wolfe. Wednesday afternoon, starting a little later than normal. Had some Titans practice to look at for a bit, but quite a few topics to talk about this week. Titans are 7-4, won 5 of their last 6. Tough, gritty, went over the Colts, and then they played the Texans this week, a team that really beat up on them last time they played, 57-14. But no Deshaun Watson this time. So it's probably going to be an entirely different game. At least the Titans hope so. There's a lot to talk about. Marcus Mariota struggles. What's going on with DeMarco Murray and Derrick Henry split. Whatever you guys want to talk about, you guys know the deal. Fire away questions, and I will answer whatever. Earlier today, I wrote an article on ESPN about Marcus Mariota's struggles, and I really broke down what I believe the collection of issues are. So go check that out if you're interested in that. I'll talk probably about that briefly in this chat, and from there we can kind of pick up wherever you guys want to talk about. I think that it's an interesting point in the Titans season because they're right on the brink. They can almost smell the playoffs. It's the first time since 2008. They're 7-4. They're in really good position. They have the Texans this week, and then they have a Cardinals team that isn't going to make the playoffs. And then they have the 49ers team. So you're really in a position where these next 3 games are really winnable. And you could be looking at a situation where you're 10-4. Which is a spot where many Titans fans probably didn't think this team would be. So I think there's a lot of positives to take out of where the Titans are at this point. And as always, the offensive struggles present a lot of different question marks going forward as well. So I'm here to answer those. Hey, Bree. And I'll answer a few of your questions. Go ahead and fire away. Brian, injury updates. They're really relatively healthy at this point of the season. The only one to watch is Rashard Matthews. He missed last week with the hamstring injury. He didn't practice today. He is probably going to end up being a guy you watch throughout the week. Does he do anything on Thursday? Does he do anything on Friday? Is he able to go? Mike Mularkey turned him day-to-day. Everybody's day-to-day in this industry, so we really don't know until we get a little bit more insight throughout the week. Interesting thing about Rashard Matthews, and I wrote a story about this earlier. You can check that up on ESPN. Rashard is wearing cleats to support Colin Kaepernick for the My Cause, My Cleats portion of Week 13, the NFL's initiative, where NFL players can wear cleats to support their favorite charity. And Rashard Matthews is choosing to support his former college teammate, Colin Kaepernick, and the Know Your Rights campaign. And basically, I talked to him a few times about this, and he's, some of you guys have been following along, know that he has been remaining in the locker room during the anthem and protesting social injustice and racial inequality, and that sort of continues with these cleats. There's pictures of them on the ESPN site on the story I wrote if you want to go ahead and check that out. I know there's a lot of different political views on how you feel about that, but I think Rashard's a good guy to talk about that issue because of his military background. So a lot of these guys have a lot of different cleats. I'll try to spotlight some as I can. Marcus Mariota, he's supporting the Habitat for Humanity, I believe. Derrick Henry, the American Cancer Society, he has some people in his family that passed for cancer. So there's a lot of different foundations that these players are representing during this week. I think it's a really cool thing the NFL is letting them do. So my spill's over. I'll go ahead and jump to some of you guys' questions, and we'll keep it moving from there. Can you explain Mularkey's comment on CD's run blocking? Yeah. I think the issue with Corey Davis, and you talked about it a little bit in that comment, but they didn't really ask him to block at Western Michigan. He was their number one receiving option. They ran an offense where he wasn't really required to block. And basically Mularkey's saying, hey, you're going to have to block to play Titans football. That's what we do here. Our receivers block. And they have a lot of really good blockers. Rashard Matthews is a good blocker. Eric Decker's a good blocker. A lot of their skill position players have to be good blockers to play on the field. As you can see with a few of the screen passes they throw to Eric Decker, which, first of all, I don't think Eric Decker should be receiving those screen passes. Maybe those should go to Taywan Taylor or to Corey Davis. But there's been several situations where Corey Davis has been asked to block on those screens and other run plays, and he's failed. And it really has just been just a guy who's obviously a big guy and a strong guy, but he probably doesn't have the technique as a blocker that you may want from a receiver at this point in his career. He's a rookie, so that's not out of the ordinary, but those are some struggles we've seen from him. A little of the smaller things, the nuances of the game. A lot of people ask why you're not getting more production out of Taywan Taylor and Corey Davis. And some of the nuances, the small portions of the game, they're still trying to grasp onto the route running portion, the blocking element, where to be on a specific route. And if they make those mistakes, it can cost the offense a blown up play or an interception. So they're sort of learning on the fly. You have a lot of talent in those rookies, but they're making mistakes, and you can't let those mistakes cost you games. So they're trying to balance how much you see those guys on the field. And I think as they improve their consistency, you'll start to see more out of both Corey Davis and Taywan Taylor. The next question is on Taylor. Corey's asking, I've noticed Taylor has been struggling with some route running lately. Is it worse than I'm seeing, though? He only had 9 snaps to Douglas's 14. Something else there. Yeah, that was a big surprise to me, the fact that Harry Douglas playing his first game outsnapped Taywan Taylor. But Malarkey loves Harry Douglas. He loves him as a locker room guy. He loves him as a guy in that receiver room. He loves everything about him. And what Harry Douglas lacks in talent and speed at this point, he has in experience and knowing where he's supposed to be. And I kind of figured a little bit of this would happen when Harry came back, because there were a lot of mistakes from this receiving core. And some of it comes, honestly, because their rookies, their season in college football would be over by now. You know, a lot of college teams are ending their season, so there is some sort of rookie wall. There is some sort of learning curve that they have to pick up. And I think Taywan does have to get better as a route runner. I think that he has incredible speed, incredible big play ability, but until you can trust him to run the right route, be in the right position, it's hard to get him on the field, because you're already seeing Mariota throw some interceptions. And if Taywan Taylor's running the wrong route and Marcus is expecting him to be somewhere and he's not, that's how even more interceptions happen. So I'm a big proponent of getting Taywan Taylor to rock, getting him on the field. But it's on him to make sure that he knows exactly where he's supposed to be and to run those routes crisper. And that goes for he and Corey Davis. PFF, yeah, here's my thing. I use PFF for occasional things. I'm not a big PFF grader guy. Maybe they grade him as an above average grader, above average receiver. I watched a lot of film. He wasn't an above average blocking receiver last game, and he hasn't been a lot of the games this season. He's a big physical guy, so when he's in good position, he can do it well. But he fails to hold on to his block in some key situations, and we've seen that this week. So I don't know why PFF has him as an above average blocking receiver, but I can tell you what I see when I watch the game and watch film, and what Malarkey sees when he watches it, and that's all I know. Lewis is asking, not that I mind, why no Adoree this week? Last week, I believe we started. Yeah, here's the thing with Adoree. I think that he's a really good offensive gadget option, but that's what he is. You're not going to be able to use him as a third down running back, and he's a full-time starting corner. And if you haven't noticed, he's playing really good ball for a cornerback. So you don't want that to disrupt him. They had a small package of plays for him, and they brought him a spurt. But at some point, you got to realize, okay, teams are going to start catching up to that. We got to mix it in and say that we're not going to. This isn't going to be an every week plan. I wouldn't be surprised to see it back into the plan this week. It just depends on whatever the game plan is. They probably had it in. They probably just didn't find a situation where they wanted to run it. I do think that they should continue to use it, but it's a gadget element. It's not going to continue to be a fixture of their offense where DeMarco Murray's getting 18 carries, Derrick Henry's getting 15 carries, and Adoree Jackson's getting 6 or 7 carries. That's not going to happen. Maybe next season, if the Titans get a third down back, that could be his role. But you can't do that for a 180-pound cornerback because you risk his injury, you risk a mistake happening, and soon the defense is just going to catch up. So it's not out of the playbook completely, but don't expect it every week to be a key fixture of it. Brian Cap would have won that Miami game. I agree, but it's not my decision. Eric, why won't Malarkey and Rubisky open up the playbook? It's frustrating seeing the offense struggle every week. That's a common sentiment, and I want to briefly talk about that because I can see why a lot of fans are angry or upset with the way the scheme is and maybe play calling. But I think that's an easy crutch that a lot of people fall on. And I think that's really bailing a lot of players out by saying, okay, the coaches are the only reason why the offense is bad. The coaches don't play the game. Yeah, they put them in position to play, but players aren't executing a lot of times. The offensive line, it doesn't matter what play they call, and if the offensive line is getting their butt whooped. I think that there are some elements of the scheme that could be more conducive to Mariota. Oh, good Lord. I'm usually pretty good at that. Mariota's skill set. But I think that he has to play better. And I talked about it in my article today. I think it's a bunch of issues. It's not solely on the coaching and the scheme. It's not solely on Mariota. I think it's some of the players around him not playing well. It's some of the offensive line taking a step back. It's some of the coaching staff needing to put him into some easier throws, some more RPOs, some more no huddles. And it's on him to not throw off his back foot and to step into his throws and be a little bit more accurate. So I think that's a little portion of the issues that he's going through at this point. And I think that it's all fixable. It's just, what we see. And the thing about opening up the playbook, you got to know that your offense, your receivers are running the right route and being in the right position, which they haven't been too often. And you got to think that Mariota's going to be careful with the ball, which he hasn't. So it's really tough to say, hey, open the offense up, throw the ball 40 times a game. When you're throwing the ball 25 times a game, Mariota's throwing 3 of them for interceptions. So it's difficult to really I see portions of that argument, but at this point in time, I don't think that solves everything that's going on. Let's see. I'm going to go through a few of these a little quicker. Brian's asking, any word on the timeshare between Henry and Murray? I wrote an article on Monday basically saying that it's time to lean on Derrick Henry in the outside zone. And you guys can check that out on ESPN. Little plug there, but basically my take is that, and I tweeted a stat out to this earlier, Derrick Henry is second in the NFL in yards after contact with 2.76 yards after contact out of 45 running backs with at least 70 carries. DeMarco Murray is 44th out of 45 with 1.43 yards after contact. What that tells me is that, one, the Titans' offensive line hasn't been very good this season, particularly in the inside. Why? That's a different story for a different day, but they've taken a big step back on their offensive line play in the interior. So that has really presented a situation where Derrick Henry and DeMarco Murray, who are both downhill runners, haven't got the steam to get going. DeMarco is obviously hampered by some of his injuries, his hamstring and other things that he's dealt with throughout the season. He just doesn't have a lot of burst. I watch him on tape, and he just doesn't really have the burst that we've seen from him in previous seasons. Derrick Henry, as I showed with that after contact stack, has been making more out of less. Yes, he has a tendency to bounce it outside a lot and lose some yards. Yes, he isn't a great blocker, as good of a blocker as DeMarco Murray is as far as a pass blocker. And yes, DeMarco has an edge on him as a receiver. But when you're running the ball, you're handing it off. Derrick Henry has clearly been the better runner this season. So I think that we should see more of Derrick Henry getting more of the lion's share of carries and maybe use a little bit more of DeMarco Murray in his role where he can be effective as a third down back. Not saying that he's going to be a complete third down back. They both can be effective in the scheme. We've seen both of them run well, but I don't think there should be a situation where DeMarco Murray is playing 85% of the snaps and Derrick Henry, your best who's actually running the ball back, is not getting the carries that he deserves. So that's my take on it. I don't believe there will be a huge shift, if I'm being honest with y'all. They really like Murray, and they think that he's going to be able to work through his injury. So I continue to anticipate that it'll be a split with Murray starting So it's just my take on what I think it should happen. I don't believe that there will be a handing off of the keys per se this season. So yeah, that was a long and winded answer about your timeshare question, Brian. Brian Moore, a couple Brians. Can Antoine Woods wear Sly's uniform? I know you guys aren't really happy with what Sly maybe did for his contract, but I've seen him play decent football over the last 4 or 5 games. I think that he has been a portion of why the Titans have been really good on run defense. They're a top 5 run defense team, and the big portion of that is because of your nose tackle play. So early in the season, he was struggling a good bit. I don't think he's playing great football per se, but I think that he hasn't been as bad as most people may think. I think that he is doing his job. Whether he's living up to a contract, that's for somebody else to decide. I think that they're stuck with his contract at this point, so he's going to play. Antoine Woods is not going to take his spot on the roster. When is Jonnu Smith going to be paired up with Delanie Walker? They play a lot of 2 and 3 tight end sets, and that's some of fans' frustrations. But they do pair him up a good bit. Jonnu hasn't got a lot of receiving options because Delanie Walker is typically on routes, and the second tight end is asked to block, which was Fasano's role last year. And that's been some of their struggles, the fact that they're putting Philip Supernall and Jonnu Smith in those blocking roles that Fasano had, and neither of those two guys are as good of blockers as Fasano. So maybe we see a little bit less 2 tight ends. Maybe we don't ask as much from Jonnu Smith and Philip Supernall, and I think that maybe they'll have better luck against the people they're blocking. Let's see. Do you feel like the Titans are close to pulling it together and making a run? What do you determine a run? They're winning 5 of their last 6. That's a run to me. I mean, I think the thing that fans would love to see is them win more convincing. I don't know if they'll turn into that team this year. Just being honest, I don't know if they're going to become a team that wins games against bad teams by 2 touchdowns. Everybody would love to see it. I just don't know if we're going to see that. I think you might have to sweat every game for the rest of this year. But they are currently in a run, 5 of their last 6. And like I mentioned, they have games this week against the Texans. They have a game against the Cardinals, and they have a game against the 49ers. I could very easily see them win all 3 of those games and go 10-4 into the Rams game. And that would be winning 8 of their last 9. And if that's not a run, then I don't know what is. Brian Moore, the article where you said Titans need to get back to the 2016 mindset and the offense has stuck with me. So true. Nice job. Yeah, the O-line. I mean, I don't like to put blame on one potential group because it's usually beyond that. But this is a unit, and I wasn't here before, but this is a unit from what I heard and from what I saw that was a top 5 group in the NFL. And they haven't looked like it this year. They haven't been the worst offensive line in the league, but they've sort of been middle of the pack, and they've really struggled in the interior. And that was the face of this team, the mentality of this team, and they're not getting that push. And I think that's having a huge impact on why everybody around the offense isn't playing up to the expectations that many had for them. Yes, she is. It's my fiance. She's a good girl. Apollo, let's see what you got. Hey Cam, do you feel our running game is struggling because we don't use Charleston Fowler at fullback like we used him last year? I don't think so, honestly. I mean, he was inactive last game, but even when he has played, the NFL offenses in general are sort of shifting away from a fullback, and I'm not sure how long he has a role as far as years on his team, because the Titans have kind of shifted into more of a one-back team where they use more tight ends than fullbacks. So I don't think that's the reason why. I think it's, like I mentioned, the interior of the offensive line isn't getting a lot of push, and the backs, when they do get pushed, haven't been great on always finding the holes. So I think that's the main reasons why the run game is struggling. Predictable on first and second down, throwing 85% of the game in shotgun. He is better under center off play action. I heard this debate, and I think I read a story earlier where that was a big point of it. I think Danny Kelly, who's a really good writer, wrote an article actually a day before mine about Mariota and what his struggles were. And that was a big point of the article. And I looked into that just to basically see, how on point with that was as far as the shotgun issue and being predictable on first and second down. Here's my thing: Philadelphia, Carolina, Minnesota, and Jacksonville, 4 playoff teams. Those are 4 of the 5 teams that run the ball more on first and second down than the Titans. And all 4 of those teams are going to make the playoffs. So I don't really think there's a correlation on running the ball on first and second down and being successful on offense, because I think everybody would argue that Philadelphia has a good offense. I think everybody would argue Minnesota has looked good on offense. Jacksonville's ran the ball. They've got Bortles. That's another issue. But these are teams that are playoff teams, and they have the same formula that the Titans have. So I think that I don't really attribute the first and second down running percentages on how they are playing. I think the big issue has been they aren't effective running the ball, whether it's first, second, third, fourth, or fifth down. It doesn't matter. They haven't been successful until they get a ball to Derrick Henry in the fourth quarter. So I think that's more of an issue than being predictable and whatnot. As far as the shotgun issue, I looked stats up on that for you too, because I love the people, and I know that you guys are going to have these questions. In 2016, Mariota dropped back in the shotgun 79% of the time, and this year it's 82% of the time. So it's increased 3%. And I think it's only increased 3%. It's been relatively even, and the offense was a lot better last year. So I don't think the shotgun versus under center deal is as big of a deal as a lot of people make it as well. That's just my opinion. Like I said, other people think different things, but I put my opinions on why I think it's struggling early in the article. Thank you guys. You guys have been great on questions today. I haven't even got to all of them. Like I said, like I always say, if I haven't answered your questions, feel free to ask it again. Feel free. I usually do a mailbag, a written mailbag later on in the week, closer to the weekend. Send your question on there. I probably missed it, and I'll try to answer it. Maybe it gets on the ESPN site for the mailbag. So, as always, I like doing this. Enjoy doing this with you guys. I'm going to run in a little bit because I've got to get some work done. I try to run through a few questions and then I'll bounce. I heard some people say something about that. I didn't see anything about Mularkey taking over offensive play calling. From what I know, it was Trubisky the whole game. I do not agree with firing Trubisky. I think that he's stubborn sometimes, and I wrote an article about him being stubborn with the run game. But I think this is a 7-4 team that execution has to be better. I know everybody wants to blame the play calling. I don't think that solves all the issues. Mariota's struggles look very similar to another past Titans quarterback. I think that that's a tough question to ask. I think that the criticism and the worry is warranted for Mariota, because this is a guy who's in year 3 and he's taking some struggles. That being said, I think it's an overreaction to say that he's broken or he's not the franchise quarterback. Every quarterback goes through struggles. The key portion is to figure out what are the struggles, how do we fix them, and does he bounce back for them? And he's shown an ability to bounce back, so I'm not counting him out, whether it's this season or next season. I think that fans have every right to have some pressure on their quarterback, their coaches, everything. But I don't think that this is a panic mode at this point for Mariota. Cater to an offense, what they're doing isn't working. Yeah, I agree. There should be a little bit more rhythm, help them out a little bit more. But this is the offense, this is the identity that this team was built for. So maybe they shift their identity in the offseason, but you're not going to be able to do that middle of the season and become a spread team. This isn't college. First of all, and you're not going to make it a college scheme with Mike Mularkey as head coach. If that's what people are waiting for, then they're going to be waiting for a long time. Because Mike Mularkey's winning, it seems like he's going to make the playoffs. I think it's more likely that he gets a new contract than he gets fired, and that means that the offense will likely be more pro type than college type, which I don't have a problem with. Let's see. The NFL SIS, 10.12 yards. Why not run there all day? Most of those yards are coming from Derrick Henry taking it around the edge. I think Derrick Henry should get the rock more. I know that 75 yards of those came against Jacksonville. Was it against Jacksonville? It was against, who did Derrick Henry run that big touchdown? I think it was the Colts, the first game. Actually, he ran that TD around there. I think that we should run the outside zone all the time. That's was my article with Derrick Henry. Outside zone, Derrick Henry, embrace it. The problem is Derrick Henry has a tendency to bounce it all the time when it doesn't have to be bounced. That's something that he can be taught. But I think the outside zone, because your tackles are your best offensive linemen. I think that should be going forward. We'll see. Like I said, a few more and then I'll bounce out. Any reason D got so much pressure in Indy? Dick LeBeau was calling a lot of blitzes, and they finally got home. Also, Jacoby Brissett holds the ball long enough for you and I to get back there. But the D-line did play well. Also, linebackers did play well. And they brought a lot of heat for them. And the pressures finally turned into sacks. So it was a really good sign for those guys. And I think, it's a good sign for things to come for that front seven who's been playing great ball. The mustache is about to come off. November is almost over. The mustache is about to come off. Titans would be best served to open up to get the lead early. Easier said than done. I think that establishing the run, while it's a little bit overrated in this concept, I think if you become a pass-heavy team with Mariota, you turn into a team that throws a lot more interceptions, has a lot more mistakes, and you put pressure on your offense all around. So I think that it continues to need to be balanced, and maybe a few shorter, easier throws to start off the game gets Mariota in rhythm. All right, guys, thank you. Josh, hard to pass play when you come out of tight end sets. Yeah, but like I said, Malarkey's a tight end guy. I think that maybe we see a little bit less of those. Maybe things open up a little bit more, but who knows? We're all predicting at this point because we haven't seen it. It could be that way for a reason. But yeah, I don't think you're going to see a team switch from a 2 tight end set to a heavy 3 receiver team mid-season. It's just the way it is. But yeah, thanks guys for the chat. I think this was a really fun one. Like I said, any questions I missed, shoot them when I put up my post about mailbag later this week. As always, check all my articles at ESPN.com. I'm at Twitter at Cameron Wolfe, and as always, I'll post what I can on my Facebook page. Thanks guys, and I'll see you guys later.